I arrived at my house and found all my things on the lawn. My daughter-in-law appeared and said, "We decided to do a clean out. Those old things are useless now." I looked her in the eyes and answered calmly, "Then I'm also going to clean out what's no longer useful to me." I took out my phone. It was time to show who really calls the shots here. I will never forget that moment, that precise instant when my life split in two. I had just returned from Phoenix. I had buried my younger sister, Grace, after watching her suffer for 6 months with cancer. I was still wearing the black funeral dress stuck to my skin. I could still smell the damp earth and withered flowers. I could still hear my nephews' cries as they said goodbye to their mother. I came back devastated. I came back with a broken soul. I came back needing a hug, a cup of hot tea, a kind word from my son Robert. But what I found was silence. I opened the gate to my house, well, to the house. That 2-story house with a garden in the front that I bought myself after working for 40 years cleaning offices. That house I painted pale yellow because I always dreamed of a cheerful home. That house I gave to my son 3 years ago when he married Danielle, because a mother always wants to see her children established. And there they were. All my things thrown on the lawn as if they were trash. My clothes, my shoes, the photographs of my late husband, the hand-knitted shawl my grandmother gave me before she died, my children's records from when they were babies, everything, absolutely everything piled up next to the bougainvillea plants that I had planted myself. I stood paralyzed. My purse fell from my hands. "What?" I whispered, feeling the air leave my chest, and then she appeared. Danielle came out of my house with a smile on her face. She was wearing a new dress, the kind that cost at least $300. Her hair was freshly styled, her nails perfect, her makeup flawless. She looked as if she had just left a beauty salon while I had just come from burying my sister. "Oh, Mom, it's so good you're back," she said in that sweet fake voice she always used with me. "We decided to do a deep clean of the house. You know, all those old things took up so much space and, well, they're useless now." I stared at her. My hands were shaking. "Old things," I repeated slowly. "Danielle, those are my belongings. There are my children's photo albums, my personal documents, the clothes of—" "Oh, yes, I know." She interrupted me with a wave of her hand as if shooing a fly. "But we needed the space in your room. We're going to turn it into the baby's room. Didn't Robert tell you I'm 3 months pregnant?" I felt a punch in my stomach. Pregnant, and I was finding out like this after my things were thrown out onto the street. "Danielle, I need to talk to Robert," I managed to say, though my voice was cracking. "He's at work, Mom. He gets home late, but don't worry. We left a little spot for you. Come on, I'll show you." She took my arm with that feigned familiarity that irritated me so much. She led me to the back of the house to the small utility room we used to store tools and bags of cement. She opened the door. "Ta-da, you can stay here. We cleaned it up a bit, put in a folding bed. It's tiny, but it's enough. But we do need you to be discreet. You know, with the baby on the way. We don't want any stress or people getting in the way." I looked at that room. It was no more than 6 feet by 6 feet. It smelled of dampness. The only window faced a dark alley. The folding bed had a thin, stained mattress. Something inside me broke, but something else, something deeper. It ignited. I looked her in the eyes. Danielle was still smiling, expecting me to bow my head to accept, to say, "Thank you for leaving me a corner in the house that I bought." Instead, I took a deep breath. "You know what, Danielle," I said with a calmness I didn't know I had. "You're right. It's time for a clean out, a deep clean out of everything that no longer serves me." Her smile faltered for just a second. I took my cell phone out of my pocket. I looked for a number I had saved for years. "Mr. Mendy's my lawyer." "What are you doing?" Danielle asked, the fake sweetness gone from her voice. "Cleaning up," I replied. "Exactly what you suggested." I dialed the number. I listened to the ringing tone. And as I waited for them to answer, I looked Danielle straight in the eyes. For the first time in 3 years, I didn't look away. Because in that moment, I understood something. I had given that house out of love. But I had never, ever given away my dignity, and they were about to find out who really called the shots here. If you want to know how a woman who lost everything reclaimed her power, subscribe to this channel because this story is just beginning. And what comes next, nobody expects. Mr. Mendes answered on the third ring. "Carol, what happened?" His voice sounded worried. He knew I had just buried my sister. "Mr. Mendes, I need to see you tomorrow morning. It's urgent," I said without taking my eyes off Danielle. She had completely lost that fake smile. Now she was looking at me with narrowed eyes, calculating, dangerous. "Are you okay?" asked the lawyer. "No, but I'm going to be," I replied and hung up. Danielle crossed her arms. "I don't know what you're planning, Mom, but I'll remind you that this house belongs to Robert and I'm his wife. So if you want to stay here, you're going to have to follow our rules." I clenched my teeth. I wanted to scream at her that I had bought that house with the sweat of 40 years cleaning other people's bathrooms, that every brick in those walls carried my sacrifice, that Robert was barely 25 years old when I gave it to him without asking for a single dollar in return. But I said nothing because I had learned something in my 67 years of life. Words without power are just noise, and I needed to get my power back first. "Okay," I said simply. "I'll stay in the utility room." Danielle blinked surprised. I think she expected a fight, expected drama, expected me to cry or beg. "Oh, good. I'm glad you understand," she said, regaining some of her composure. "And another thing, there's no more room in the refrigerator for your things. So you'll have to buy your own food and keep it in your room. We can't be sharing the kitchen at all hours either. The doctor says I need to avoid stress." I nodded slowly. "Of course, no problem." "Perfect. Well then, welcome to your new space," she said, and went inside the house, swaying her hips as if she had just won a battle. I was left alone in that tiny room. I closed the door, and then only then did I allow myself to cry. I cried for my sister Grace. I cried for my husband who had been dead for 10 years. I cried for the woman I had been strong, hardworking, proud. I cried for my son Robert, who once hugged me and told me, "Mom, you're my hero." When had everything changed? I sat on that folding bed that smelled musty. I looked around. The walls had damp stains. The light bulb hung from a bare wire. There wasn't even a nail to hang clothes on. But then I remembered something. I remembered my mother who had raised 5 children alone after my father abandoned us. I remembered how she would tell us, "Daughters, a woman isn't strong because of what she has. She is strong because of what she is capable of rebuilding when everything is taken from her." I wiped my tears. I took out my cell phone and started taking pictures of the room of my belongings thrown on the lawn of everything. Because if life had taught me anything, it's that the truth always needs proof. That night, Robert arrived after 11 o'clock. I heard his car park. I heard voices. I heard Danielle's sharp laugh. I waited. I thought he would come to see me, that he would knock on the utility room door, that he would ask me how I was after my sister's funeral. But he didn't come. At 12 o'clock at night, when I couldn't take it anymore, I left the room. I walked barefoot down the hallway of my house, feeling the cold tiles under my feet. I knocked on the master bedroom door. "Robert," I called softly. Silence. "Robert, son, I need to talk to you." The door opened just a crack. My son peeked his head out. He looked tired with dark circles under his eyes, thinner than the last time I had seen him. "Mom, it's late," he whispered. "What's wrong?" "What's wrong?" I repeated, feeling my voice break. "Robert, they threw all my things on the lawn. They put me in the utility room, and you didn't even tell me Danielle is pregnant." He looked down. "Mom, I was going to tell you. But you were in Phoenix with Aunt Gracie, and I just buried my sister Robert. I just said goodbye to the only family I had left for my generation, and I come home to find I've been treated like trash." "It's not personal," Mom said, rubbing his eyes. "We just need the space. With the baby on the way, things have to change." Change. I looked at him in disbelief. "Robert, I bought this house. I gave it to you because I thought you would want me here, that we would be a family. And we are, Mom. But Danielle, she's stressed. The pregnancy has been difficult. The doctor says we shouldn't upset her." "And me?" I asked, feeling a lump in my throat. "Don't I matter?" Robert sighed. "Of course you matter, Mom. But you have to understand, Danielle is my family now, my priority. You always told us yourself that when you get married, your wife comes first. Every word was like a stab. Not like this, son, I whispered. Not like this. Mom, please, we're tired. We'll talk tomorrow, okay? Try to be understanding. And he closed the door. I stood in that hallway trembling. My son, my Robert, the boy whose diapers I changed, whom I taught to read, whom I hugged every time he cried. That son had just closed the door in my face. I returned to the utility room like a ghost, but I didn't cry anymore because something inside me had changed. The sadness was turning into something else, into determination, into silent fury, into the absolute certainty that this could not be left like this. I sat on that folding bed and opened my nightstand drawer. In there, I kept something no one knew I had. An old notebook where I kept a record of all the house expenses since I had given it to Robert. I started to turn the pages, and what I saw froze my blood. But it also gave me the first weapon I needed to fight. What I discovered that night changed everything, and the worst part is, they had no idea what was coming. The notebook trembled in my hands. It was 2:00 in the morning. The utility room was completely silent. The only sound was the dripping of a leaky faucet somewhere in the house. I turned the pages slowly, feeling my heart beat faster with every line I read. I had always been organized with money. I had to be. When you grow up poor, you learn that every dollar counts. So when I gave the house to Robert, I asked him for something very simple. Son, I just want you to keep me updated on the important expenses, not to control you, but because this house is your asset and assets need to be taken care of. He had agreed. During the first year, Robert would show me the receipts, tell me about the repairs. We were a team, but since he married Danielle, everything had changed. I looked at the numbers again, feeling the blood rush to my head. In the last 8 months, huge transfers had been made from the family bank account. I had access to the bank statements because Robert had given me a debit card for emergencies, but I had never used it. I only checked the transactions occasionally. And now, seeing it all together, the reality hit me like a punch. $4,500 in January. Living room remodel, $5,200 in February. New furniture, $3,800 in March, no description. $6,100 in April. Trip to Miami, $4,800 in May. Various purchases, $5,400 in June. Decoration, $7,300 in July. No description. $7,900 in August. Baby expenses. I added it up mentally. It was hard because my hands were trembling so much I could barely hold the pencil. $45,000. Almost half $100,000 in 8 months. Where had that money come from? Robert earned a good salary as an engineer, about $3,500 a month. But after paying for utilities, food, and gas, there wasn't that much left over. Definitely not enough to spend more than $5,000 a month on extras. Then I remembered something that froze my blood. When I gave the house to Robert, I also left him access to a savings account I had maintained for years. It was money from my severance package when I retired, plus some savings I had put together, almost $60,000. I told him, "Son, this is for emergencies, so you'll never lack anything." With trembling hands, I searched through my papers until I found the last statement for that savings account. I opened it and my world collapsed. Current balance, $8,954. Out of $60,000, only $8,900 remained. I felt the room spin. I had to sit on the floor leaning against the damp wall trying to breathe. More than $50,000 gone in less than a year. And I had no idea because I was busy taking care of my sick sister in Phoenix because I trusted my son. Because I never ever thought they would do something like this to me. But the money wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing they had used me. They had kicked me out of my house. They had taken my space. They had humiliated me with the very money I had given them. I got up from the floor. My legs were shaking, but I walked to the room's window. Outside in the dark alley, I could see the light from the neighbor's kitchen. Lucy. She always woke up early to make biscuits and sell them before dawn. She was an older woman like me, a widow like me, a woman who had worked her whole life to raise her children. And in that moment, I needed to talk to someone. I put on a robe over my nightgown and slipped quietly out of the house. I walked the 20 yards that separated my house from hers. I knocked gently on her kitchen door. "Who is it?" Miss Lucy's voice asked. "It's me, Lucy. Carol." The door opened immediately. Miss Lucy looked at me with concern. She knew I had just returned from the funeral. "Honey, what are you doing up at this hour? Come in." "Come in." I entered her small, warm kitchen. It smelled of fresh dough, a hot griddle freshly brewed coffee. It smelled like home, what my house used to smell like. Coffee. She offered pouring me a cup without waiting for an answer. I sat at her old, worn wooden table, and then I couldn't hold it in anymore. The tears started to fall. "Lucy," I whispered, "I need you to tell me the truth. Have you seen anything strange at my house these past months?" She sat across from me, taking my hands in hers, rough and calloused from work. "Honey, I didn't want to say anything because you were with your sick sister. But yes, I've seen things." "What things?" Miss Lucy sighed deeply. "Your daughter-in-law, Danielle, she doesn't work right." "No. Robert says she doesn't need to work, that he earns enough." "Well, honey, that girl changes cars every 2 weeks. It's not the same one. I've seen a red car, a white one, a gray one, and the bags she takes out of the car are from those expensive stores at the mall. The ones that cost thousands of dollars." I felt a chill. "And Robert, I see your son leave very early and come back very late. He looks tired, honey. Very tired and thin. Like he's not eating well. Anything else?" Miss Lucy hesitated. Then she spoke in a lower voice like someone sharing a painful secret. "The other day I saw them sell your furniture. The old ones. The ones you had in the living room, the carved wood ones. Some guys came in a truck and took them away. Your daughter-in-law was there smiling, counting bills. The coffee cup fell from my hands. It shattered on the floor. That furniture, that damned furniture, it was my mother's inheritance. Furniture that was over 70 years old. Furniture my grandmother had brought from Philadelphia when she moved to the city. Furniture that was worth a fortune not because of the money, but because of the history. And Danielle had sold it as if it were trash. How long ago was that?" I asked in a dead voice. 2 weeks ago, honey, when you were in Phoenix." I remained silent. Miss Lucy got up to sweep the broken pieces of the cup, but I barely heard her. In my head, the pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together. The missing money, the excessive spending, the sold furniture, my clothes thrown on the lawn, the utility room. Danielle wasn't just kicking me out of the house. She was erasing me, erasing my history, my memories, my existence. And my son was letting her do it. I returned to the utility room as dawn was breaking. I sat on that folding bed with the bank statements and my notebook on my lap, and I made a decision. If they wanted to play this way, I would play too. But by my own rules, because they didn't know something very important. They didn't know that the house was still in my name. Robert had never done the official paperwork to change the owner. I had only given him verbal permission to use it. They didn't know that I had documents for absolutely everything. And they didn't know that the woman sitting in that miserable room was not the same one who had arrived yesterday. That woman had been broken. But from the ashes, something new was being born. Something stronger, something dangerous. When the sun had fully risen, I already had a plan. And I swear, not even in their worst nightmares could they imagine what I was about to do to them. At 9 o'clock in the morning sharp, I was knocking on the door of Mr. Mendez's office. I had washed up in the utility sink in the yard because Danielle had locked the door to the main bathroom so I wouldn't use her hot water. I had put on my best black dress, the same one from the funeral. I had styled my hair carefully, pulling it back into a firm bun because I had learned something over all these years. When you go to fight for what's yours, you have to look dignified. Mr. Mendez greeted me with a long, tight hug. "Carol, my dear, I'm so sorry about your sister. Gracie was a great woman." "Thank you, Mr. Mendez," I said, feeling the lump in my throat. "But I didn't come to talk about that. I came for something else." We sat in his office, filled with books and diplomas. He poured me a glass of water and waited patiently for me to begin. I took out my notebook. The bank statements, the pictures of my things on the lawn, everything, and I told him everything. As I spoke, I watched Mr. Mendy's face transform from concern to surprise, from surprise to indignation. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin. "Carol, this is serious. Very serious. I know. Does your son know you have access to those bank statements? He gave me the card years ago, but I think he forgot. I never used it." The lawyer nodded slowly, thinking, "All right, let's take this one step at a time. First, the house. Do you have the deed?" "Yes, here it is." I took the document out of my bag. I had guarded it like a treasure. He reviewed it carefully, turning each page with professional attention. And then he smiled. It wasn't a smile of joy. It was the smile of a strategist. "Carol, do you know what we have here? What the deed is still 100% in your name. Robert never made the official change of ownership with a notary public. I felt my heart skip a beat, but I gave it to him as a gift. Yes, but legally a gift of real estate requires a formal act before a notary. You gave him permission to live there. You gave him what we call in law a tenny at will. Basically, you lent him the house, but the house is still yours. For the first time in days, I felt something like hope. So that means what? That means you can revoke that permission whenever you want. It's your property. They are legally speaking your tenants without a contract, without permanent possession rights." I remained silent, processing that information. And the money I asked, the $45,000 that disappeared. The lawyer reviewed the bank statements with a serious expression. "There's something very interesting here. Look at these transfers. Many were made with an electronic signature. Did you authorize these transactions?" "No, never. And Robert has full access to the account." "Yes, because I gave it to him when I lent him the house. I wanted him to have a financial backup. But did you sign any document making him a co-owner of the account?" I thought carefully. "No, he just has a linked debit card, but the account is in my name." Mr. Mendes clasped his hands on the desk. "Carol, this is delicate. If Robert made those transfers without your explicit authorization, it could be considered misappropriation of assets. Technically, it's family fraud." The words fell on me like stones. "Fraud. My own son." "I don't want to send him to jail, Mr. Mendes," I said quickly. "I just want things to be fair, and they will be. But you need to regain your negotiating power, and for that, we need to make some moves." He took out a notepad and began to write. "Here's what we're going to do. First, today, we are going to change all the passwords to your bank accounts. You will be the only one with access." I nodded. "Second, we're going to make an official inventory of everything that was in that house when you gave it to Robert, including that antique furniture they sold. You are going to formally report the unauthorized sale of your property." "Can I do that?" "Of course you can, because you never took your name off the deed. Legally, everything in that house was still yours." I felt the strength return to my body. "Third, we are going to formally notify Robert that he must vacate the property in 30 days, or alternatively sign a formal lease agreement with monthly rent and very clear clauses." "Rent?" I asked, surprised. "To my own son." The lawyer looked at me with those wise eyes that had seen 1,000 cases like mine. "Carol, your son kicked you out of your house, put you in a utility room, spent your money without asking, sold your mother's furniture. Do you really think he deserves to continue living there for free?" He was right. Completely right. "And if he refuses," I asked, "then we start the eviction process. And believe me, with the evidence, you have a judge will rule in your favor in less than 3 months." I stared out the office window. Outside, Chicago was bustling with its normal traffic, people going to work, street vendors, everyday life. And there I was about to completely change the course of my life. "Is there anything else?" the lawyer said, pulling me from my thoughts. "Do you have other assets? Properties accounts?" I thought carefully. "Yes, I have a small apartment in the old factory district. It was my husband's. We've been renting it out for years." "How much do you rent it for?" $1,800 a month. "And where does that money go?" "To a different bank account, one I opened years ago for the apartment's maintenance expenses." Robert doesn't know about that account. Mr. Mendes smiled broadly. Perfect. So you have your own income. That changes everything. It means you can live independently if you decide not to go back to that house. The idea hit me like a lightning bolt. Live alone at 67 years old after a lifetime of taking care of others. Mr. Mendes? I don't know if I can. Carol, he interrupted me with a firm but kind voice. What do you want? Really, in the bottom of your heart, what do you want? I fell silent. What did I want? I wanted my son to apologize to me. I wanted him to treat me with the respect I deserved. I wanted to get my house back, my space, my dignity. But more than anything, I wanted them to understand that I was not a burden. I was not an old piece of furniture that could be thrown away. I was not a nuisance to be gotten rid of. I was Carol Rodriguez Salazar's widow, a woman who had worked for 40 years without a break, a mother who had raised 3 children alone after being widowed, a woman who deserved respect. I want justice, I said finally. I want them to learn that you can't treat people like that, especially your own mother. Mr. Mendes nodded. Then we're going to give you exactly that. But Carol, I need you to be prepared. This is going to hurt. There will be tears, screams, pleading. Robert is going to try to make you feel guilty. Danielle is going to make up stories. They're going to say you're a bad mother, that you're selfish, that you're crazy. They already say all of that to me, I whispered. But now it's going to be worse because now you're fighting back. And when you fight back, people show their true colors. I took a deep breath. I'm ready. Are you sure I thought of my mother's furniture sold like trash? I thought of the missing money. I thought of the damp, dark utility room. I thought of the door slammed in my face. Yes, I said with a firm voice. I'm sure. Then let's begin. I left Mr. Mendes' office 3 hours later. In my bag, I carried new documents, changed passwords, a detailed action plan, and something more important. I carried hope. I walked through the downtown streets with a firm step. I bought myself a coffee and a sweet roll at a bakery. I sat on a park bench and ate peacefully, watching people pass by. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled because they thought they had defeated me. They thought they had broken me. They thought I was going to bow my head and accept my fate as an old, invisible woman. But they were very, very wrong. I was not a defeated woman. I was a woman preparing for war, and they had no idea what was coming for them. Robert and Danielle were about to get the surprise of their lives, and I was going to be there to see it all. I returned to the house around 6 o'clock in the evening. I was carrying 3 grocery bags. I had bought what I needed to prepare food in the utility room, a small electric grill, disposable plates, a small pot, some basic groceries. If they wanted me to live like a tenant, I would do so, but with dignity. When I entered, I heard voices in the living room, many voices. I peeked in carefully. Danielle was there dressed up as if for a magazine. She was wearing a pale pink dress that must have cost thousands of dollars. Next to her were her parents, Mr. Armstrong, a burly man with a mustache and an air of importance, and Miss Beatrice, a thin, elegant woman who always looked at me as if I were something stuck to her shoe. Robert was also there, dressed in a shirt and dress pants, uncomfortable, pulling at his collar as if it were choking him. "Mom!" Danielle exclaimed when she saw me with that sing-ong fake voice. "So glad you're here. I prepared a family dinner. My parents wanted to better understand our situation as if it were a problem that needed to be solved." "Good evening," I greeted briefly, trying to pass towards the utility room. "Oh, no, no, no." Danielle approached me, taking my arm firmly. "I've already prepared everything. It would be rude if you didn't join us. Besides, we need to talk about some important things." I had no choice. I sat at the dining room table, my table, the one I had bought at an antique market 15 years ago. Danielle served dinner with a perfect smile. Chipotle-style chicken red rice salad. Everything looked delicious. Everything smelled like home. But the atmosphere was as tense as a guitar string about to snap. "Miss Carroll," Mr. Armstrong began, wiping his mouth with a napkin. "My daughter has told me there have been some misunderstandings lately." "Misunderstandings," I repeated, measuring each word. "Yes, well, Ms. Beatrice intervened with a sharp voice. Danielle tells me you feel displaced, but you have to understand, Miss Carroll, that young people need their space, especially now with the baby on the way. I gripped my silverware tightly. I understand perfectly the need for space, I said calmly. What I don't understand is why my belongings were thrown on the lawn without asking me. Oh, Mom, let's get over that already. Danielle made a dramatic gesture with her hand. It was a simple miscommunication. I already apologized. A lie. She had never apologized. And about the room, Mr. Armstrong continued. Well, I think it's very generous of Robert and Danielle to have given you a space. There are many people your age who don't even have that people my age. As if I were a burden and nuisance. A beggar grateful for crumbs. Robert said nothing, just ate in silence, his gaze fixed on his plate. Besides, Ms. Beatrice added, at your age, you should be thinking about making things easier for everyone. There are very nice retirement homes with nurses' activities people your age. Wouldn't that be more comfortable? There, it was the real reason for this dinner. They wanted to convince me to go to a nursing home. I looked at Robert. My son still didn't look up. Robert, I said in a firm voice, what do you think about this? He finally looked up. His eyes were tired, empty. Mom, I just want everyone to be okay for there to be peace. Peace, I repeated. You're asking me for peace while you're planning to send me to a nursing home. It's not a nursing home, Mom. Danielle intervened quickly. They are luxury retirement communities with gardens with... I'm not interested. I interrupted her. Silence fell over the table like a tombstone. Mr. Armstrong cleared his throat uncomfortably. Miss Carroll, I understand this is difficult for you, but you have to be realistic. Robert and Danielle are building their family, and you've completed your cycle. You've raised your children. Now it's time for them to live their lives. Every word was a slap, but the worst was yet to come. And on the economic issue, Ms. Beatrice continued in a tone of someone discussing business. Danielle mentioned there were some confusions with the bank accounts. There it was the real reason for the dinner. They had realized they could no longer withdraw money. There were no confusions, I said in a clear voice. I simply changed the passwords to my accounts as I should have done from the beginning. Danielle dropped her silverware with a theatrical crash. You see, Robert, I told you your mother was acting strangely. Why would you do that? Mom, that money is for the family. That money is mine, I said, feeling my blood boil. Money I saved for 40 years. Money you spent without my permission. $45,000 in 8 months. What did you spend it on? Danielle's face turned white, then red, then purple. How dare you? How dare I? I stood up from my chair. Ask for an account of my own money. Ask why you sold my mother's furniture without my authorization. Question why you treated me like trash when I arrived from my sister's funeral. Mom, please. Robert also stood up, his hands outstretched. Don't do this. Not in front of them. Not in front of them, I looked at him incredulously. Robert, they came here to convince me to go to a nursing home, and you're worried about appearances. Mr. Armstrong slammed his fist on the table. Ma'am, you're being very rude. We came as a family to find a civilized solution. Civilized? I let out a bitter laugh. Is throwing my things on the lawn civilized? Is selling my mother's belongings civilized? Is taking $0.500 from me without asking civilized? That money was for the house, Danielle shouted with no sweetness left in her voice. To improve the house to make it worth more. This house is already worth plenty, I said, pronouncing each word carefully. And it's still mine. The silence was absolute. Danielle blinked in confusion. What, you heard me? This house is in my name. We never did the official deed change. Robert lives here by my permission. A permission I can revoke whenever I want? I saw the color drain from Danielle's face, how Mr. Armstrong and Miss Beatrice looked at each other in panic, how Robert slumped into his chair with his head in his hands. No, it can't be, Danielle whispered. Robert told me the house was his. He promised me before we got married. Well, he lied to you, I said coldly. Or he simply never did the paperwork. The fact is, this house is legally mine. Every brick, every window, every inch. Danielle turned on Robert like a wild animal. Tell me it's not true. Robert, tell me this crazy old woman is lying. Robert slowly lifted his head. There were tears in his eyes. It's true, he whispered. I never finished the paperwork. I thought that it wasn't urgent, that Mom would never, that I would never. What Danielle screamed, that I would never find out, that I would never reclaim it. You told me this house was yours. I married you because you said you had assets. And there it was, the naked, raw truth. Danielle hadn't married my son for love. She had married him for the house for my house. Miss Beatrice stood up indignantly. This is unacceptable. Armstrong, we're leaving. I'm not going to stay here and listen to these accusations. They're not accusations, I said calmly. They are facts, and I have documents to prove everything. Mr. Armstrong pointed his finger at me. You are a bad mother. A real mother wouldn't do this to her son. Those words hurt. H hurt more than I could admit, but I wasn't going to let them hurt me anymore. A real mother teaches her children to respect, to value, to be honest. I did all of that. If Robert didn't learn, it's not my fault. It's his. I turned and walked towards the utility room. Behind me, I heard chaos. Danielle crying hysterically, Miss Beatrice screaming insults, Mr. Armstrong demanding explanations, Robert trying to calm everyone down. I closed the door to the room and leaned against it, trembling. It had been the toughest confrontation of my life, but also the most necessary. And it was just the beginning. That night around 11, I heard violent banging on the room door. Mom, open up. We need to talk. It was Robert. I didn't open it. Mom, please. Danielle is very upset. The doctor said she can't get stressed because of the baby. I still didn't open it. What do you want me to do? Beg for your forgiveness on my knees. Cry. Tell me what you want and I'll do it. But please don't take the house from us. I threw the door open. Robert was a mess. His hair disheveled, his eyes red, his shirt wrinkled, and for the first time I felt no pity. I felt disappointment. Robert, I said in a calm voice, I'm going to tell you something and I want you to listen carefully. I never wanted to take anything from you. I gave you this house out of love. I gave you my money out of generosity. I gave you my space for family. I know, Mom. I know. But you treated me like trash. You humiliated me. You stole from me. You lied to me. And when I came back broken from my sister's funeral, you threw me out on the street. It was Danielle's mistake. I didn't know that. You knew. I raised my voice. You knew and you did nothing. You closed the door in my face. You told me she was your priority. You told me to understand. It's just she's my wife, Mom. I have to support her. And what am I, trash, a burden to be gotten rid of? Robert fell to his knees in front of me. Forgive me, he sobbed. Forgive me, Mom. I was a coward. I was a bad son, but I'm begging you, don't leave us on the street. I looked at him there, kneeling, crying, and something inside me broke, but not from pain, from clarity. This wasn't my little boy anymore. This was a man who had made his choice, and he had to live with the consequences of his choices. I'm not going to leave you on the street, I said finally. But things are going to change drastically. Tomorrow, you're coming with me to Mr. Mendy's office, and we are going to sign a contract with clear rules. Whatever you say, Mom, whatever you say. And Danielle is going to pay back every dollar she spent of my money. Either she pays it or you pay it, but it will be paid. Robert nodded desperately. Yes, whatever. Now go. I'm tired. He got up slowly. Before he left, he looked at me with the eyes of a beaten puppy. Do you hate me, Mom? The question took me by surprise. No, Robert, I said sadly. I don't hate you, but I don't recognize you either. The son I raised would never have done this to me. I closed the door, and for the first time in days, I slept soundly because I knew I had won the first battle. But the war was just beginning. The next morning, Robert and I went to the lawyer's office, and what happened there changed everything forever. Robert arrived on time at Mr. Mendy's office, but he wasn't alone. Danielle came with him, clinging to his arm like a tick. She wore dark glasses that covered half her face and held a tissue in her hand ready for drama. When they saw me sitting in the waiting room, Danielle stopped short. She's coming, she whispered to Robert, though loud enough for me to hear. It's her lawyer's office, Danielle, Robert replied with a tired voice. Mr. Mendes received us in his office. His face was professional, serious, impenetrable. "Good morning, Mrs. Carroll, Mr. Robert, Mrs. Danielle. Please have a seat." We sat down. Danielle couldn't stop looking around suspiciously like a caged animal looking for an exit. "All right," the lawyer began. "I've called you here because there are legal matters we need to resolve formally. First of all, let's clarify the situation of the property." He placed a copy of the house deed on the desk. As you can see here, the house located at 247 Jacaranda Street is registered 100% in the name of Mrs. Carol Rodriguez, Salazar's widow. There is no other owner. Danielle snatched off her glasses. "That's impossible. Robert told me that." "What Robert told you is irrelevant." The lawyer interrupted her with a sharp tone. "The legal facts are these. Mrs. Carroll is the sole owner. You live there by verbal permission, which in legal terms is called a tenant at will. But I'm his daughter-in-law." "It's my house too," Danielle insisted, her voice getting higher. "No, Mom, it is not. Not 1 inch of that property is in your name." I saw Danielle turn pale, her hands clutching the tissue until her knuckles turned white. "Is this true?" Robert asked in a trembling voice. My son lowered his head. "Yes." "And when were you planning on telling me?" "I thought we would sort out the paperwork after the wedding, but with work and I don't care about your excuses," Danielle shouted, jumping to her feet. "You told me you owned a house. You promised me." "Danielle, calm down. Please think about the baby." Robert pleaded. "The baby?" She scoffed. "Right. The baby who's going to be born in a house that isn't even yours." Mr. Mendes tapped the desk gently. "Ma'am, please sit down. There are more matters to discuss." Danielle slumped back into the chair, breathing heavily. "Second matter," the lawyer continued, "the unauthorized withdrawals from Mrs. Carroll's bank accounts." He placed the bank statements I had given him on the desk. "In the last 8 months, a total of $45,300 has been taken from these accounts, Mrs. Carroll never authorized these transactions." "I didn't take that money." Robert defended himself immediately. The transfers were made with the card that is in your name," said the lawyer. "That makes you legally responsible." But it was Danielle who used the card. I lent it to her because she said she needed what Danielle stared at him with wide eyes. "Now you're gonna blame me. You were the one who bought the new furniture, who organized the trip to Miami, who spent $6,000 on clothes. Because you told me we had money that your mom had given you all that. I said she lent it to us, not that she gave it to you. Watching them fight like this should have given me satisfaction, but it only brought me sadness." "Enough," I said in a firm voice. They both fell silent immediately. "I don't care who spent the money. You are both responsible, and that money will be returned. All of it, down to the last dollar." "Mom, we don't have $45,000, Robert said desperately. "My salary barely covers." "Then you will pay it in installments with interest. The lawyer will draw up a payment plan." "Interest?" Danielle let out a hysterical laugh. "You're going to charge your own son interest. I'm going to charge interest to the person who stole my money. Yes, it's not theft. It's family money. It was my retirement money," I said, feeling my voice break. "Money I earned cleaning bathrooms and offices for 40 years. Money I was going to use for my medical expenses when I got older. And you spent it on trips and clothes." Danielle opened her mouth to reply, but no words came out. "There's one more issue," Mr. Mendes continued. "The antique furniture that was sold without authorization. According to Mrs. Carroll, they were pieces over 70 years old, a family heirloom." "How much did you sell them for?" Absolute silence. "How much?" I repeated. Robert swallowed hard. $1,500. I felt the world stop. $1,500, I whispered. "You sold my mother's furniture. Hand-carved mahogany pieces. Furniture that was worth over $10,000 for $1,500. The buyer said they were very old, that they needed restoration," Robert mumbled. "Because they were antiques," I exploded, getting up from my chair. "That's why they were worth so much. That furniture was the last inheritance I had left from my mother." "Mom, what does it matter anymore?" Danielle said with annoyance. They were just old furniture. Something inside me snapped, but not from sadness, from fury. I approached Danielle slowly. She leaned back in her chair, scared. Just old furniture, I said in a dangerously low voice. Just old furniture. My grandmother brought that furniture from Philadelphia on a freight truck in 1952. My mother polished it every Sunday after church. I taught Robert to read at that table. We had family dinners there for 30 years. I didn't know, Danielle stammered. You didn't know because you never asked. Because to you, anything that isn't new and expensive is worthless, just like me. An old woman who is useless, a burden to be gotten rid of. That's not true. No. I took out my cell phone and showed them the pictures I had taken the day I arrived from the funeral. Look at this. Look, my things thrown on the lawn. My photos, my clothes, the memories of my dead husband all thrown out like trash. Danielle looked at the photos and turned pale. I thought they were things you didn't use anymore, and that's why you threw them out without asking me. Without waiting for me to come back from my sister's funeral. We needed space for the baby. You had the whole house, I shouted. A 2-story house with 4 bedrooms. Why did you need my room? Why did you need to humiliate me? Danielle covered her face with her hands and began to cry. But it didn't move me anymore. I had seen too much. I had suffered too much. Mr. Mendes, I said, turning to him, I want them out of my house. I want to start the eviction process. No, Robert shouted, jumping up. Mom, please, we can't leave. We have nowhere to go. Danielle is pregnant. You should have thought of that before you treated me the way you did. Mrs. Carroll, the lawyer intervened. Legally, I can start the eviction today. They have to vacate in 30 days. That leaves us on the street, Danielle sobbed, with a baby on the way. What kind of grandmother are you? Those words hit me like a punch. What kind of grandmother was I? One who had lost everything, one who had been betrayed, one who was tired of being stepped on. But then I looked at Danielle. I really looked at her and I saw genuine fear in her eyes. I saw a young, stupid woman who had made terrible mistakes, but who was pregnant, who was going to bring my grandchild into the world. I sighed deeply. I'm not going to leave you on the street, I said finally. But this is what's going to happen. You are going to sign a formal lease agreement. You are going to pay $1,200 a month in rent. You are going to pay me back the $45,000 in payments of $1,000 a month for 4 years. And if you miss a single month, I will evict you without hesitation. $1,200 in rent plus $1,000 in debt. That's $2,200 a month, Robert exclaimed. We won't be able to afford it. Then Danielle will have to get a job like the rest of the world. I'm pregnant and I worked until my 8th month of pregnancy with Robert cleaning floors on my knees, so don't give me any excuses. Danielle looked at me with pure hatred. You'll regret this, she hissed. When your grandchild is born, you won't meet him. We won't let you near him. You'll die alone and bitter. Her words hurt, but they weren't going to control me anymore. If that's my cross to bear, I'll bear it, I replied. But I will never be a slave in my own house again. Mr. Mendes prepared the documents right there. Robert signed them with trembling hands. Danielle refused to sign at first, but Robert forced her to. When we left the office, they drove away in their car without saying a word to me. I stood on the sidewalk, breathing the fresh morning air. I had won, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty, shattered, because I had gotten my house back, but I had lost my son, and I didn't know if I could ever forgive myself for that. But the story doesn't end there, because 3 days later, something happened that changed everything again. And this time, it was worse than I ever imagined. 3 days after signing the contract, I woke up in the utility room with a pain in my chest that wasn't normal. It wasn't sadness. It was something physical, real, terrifying, a pressure squeezing me as if someone were wringing my heart with their hands. I tried to get out of bed, but my legs wouldn't respond. I couldn't get air into my lungs. The room started to spin. Help, I whispered, but my voice barely came out. I tried to bang on the wall for someone to hear me. Once, twice. On the 3rd try, my arm fell limp. Everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed. The fluorescent lights hurt my eyes. There was a constant beeping from a machine beside me. I felt a needle in my arm connected to an IV bag. "She's awake!" I heard a woman's voice. A nurse came over to check on me, taking my blood pressure and pulse. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Carroll?" What happened?" I managed to say with a hoarse voice. "You had a minor heart attack. Your neighbor found you unconscious and called an ambulance." "You're very lucky to be alive. Miss Lucy, my guardian angel. How long you've been here for 8 hours? We've already notified your family. 2 of your children are outside. They arrived an hour ago from Denver and Austin." "2 children, Robert?" I asked. The nurse hesitated for a moment. "Your son Robert was notified 7 hours ago. He hasn't come." Those words hurt more than the heart attack. My son, the one who lived 20 minutes from the hospital, hadn't come. But my other children, Marianne and George, who lived hundreds of miles away, had dropped everything to get here. "I want to see them," I said. "Of course, just for a moment." "Okay. The doctor says you should avoid strong emotions." The nurse left, and seconds later they burst in like hurricanes. Marianne, my middle child, 38 years old, a lawyer always so serious and organized, but now her eyes were red and swollen from crying. George, my youngest son, 35 years old, an engineer like Robert, but with a completely different heart. His hair was messy and his shirt was buttoned wrong as if he had dressed in a hurry. "Mom." Marianne ran to me and hugged me carefully as if I were made of glass. "Thank God. We thought we were going to lose you." George took my free hand and squeezed it tightly. "What happened, Mom?" "Miss Lucy called us crying, saying she found you passed out on the floor. Why didn't you tell us you were sick?" "I didn't want to worry you," I whispered. "Worry us." Marianne wiped away her tears angrily. "You almost died, Mom. The doctor says it was a miracle Miss Lucy found you when she did." 10 more minutes and she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. "But we don't understand," George said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "The doctor says this was caused by extreme stress." "What's going on? Why so much stress?" I looked at both of them. My children so different from Robert in so many ways, and I told them everything. I told them about my arrival from the funeral, my things thrown on the lawn, the utility room, Danielle, the missing money, the sold furniture, everything. As I spoke, I watched my children's expressions change from concern to disbelief, from disbelief to horror, from horror to absolute fury. What Marianne shouted, jumping up. "Robert did what I'm going to kill him." George stood up too. "I'm going to go right now and I'm going to George." "No." I stopped him with what little strength I had. "It's already been handled. We've signed a contract with Mr. Mendes." "Mr. Mendes knows about this?" Marianne asked. "Yes, he's helping me." Marianne immediately took out her cell phone. "I'm calling Robert right now." "Wait." I tried to stop her, but she was already dialing. We waited. 1, 2, 3 rings. Voicemail. Marianne called again. Voicemail again. "He's rejecting my calls," she said in a dangerous voice. "That damned coward is rejecting my calls." George tried too. Same result. Mom Marianne said, putting her phone away with jerky movements. "When you get out of here, you're coming with me to Denver." "I can't." "Yes, you can. And you will. I'm not going to let you continue living in those conditions. I don't live in the utility room anymore. I rented a small apartment with the money from the rent of the building in the old factory district." "What building?" George asked, confused. "One I inherited from your father. We've been renting it out for years." "You didn't know because I always save that money for emergencies." My children looked at each other. Mom, George said slowly, "How many more secrets do you have?" "They're not secrets. They're precautions. You learn to take care of yourself when you're a widow." Marianne sat down next to me again, taking my hand in both of hers. "Mom, listen to me carefully. Robert has no right to treat you like this. I don't care if he's my brother. What he did is unforgivable. He's married. He has to choose his wife. Choosing his wife doesn't mean humiliating his mother." George exploded. "I'm married, Mom. I have 2 kids and Andrea would never ask me to treat you like that. Never. And if she did," he continued without hesitation, "then she wouldn't be the woman I want to be with. A good wife doesn't make you choose between her and your family. A good wife integrates." She doesn't disintegrate. Those words made me cry because George was right. A good partner doesn't force you to abandon your own. Mom Marianne said in a firm voice, I need you to understand something. You gave us everything. You worked until you broke so we could study. You paid for our college. You helped us when we needed it. Now it's our turn to take care of you. I don't want to be a burden. You are not a burden, Marianne shouted. You are our mother, and the fact that you think you could be a burden breaks my heart. George came over and hugged both of us. Mom, when you get out of here, we're going to fix everything. I'm going to talk to Robert personally, and if he doesn't change his ways, if he doesn't apologize on his knees, then I will disown him as my brother too. I don't want you to fight because of me. It's not because of you, Mom. It's about what's right. And what Robert did is wrong. At that moment, the doctor came in, an older man with glasses and a serious expression. Salazar family, I need to talk to you about Mrs. Carroll's condition. We all tensed up. The minor heart attack was caused by acute and prolonged stress. Your mother's blood pressure was at dangerous levels. If we don't make drastic changes to her lifestyle, the next one won't be a minor one. It will be a full-blown heart attack and likely fatal. The words fell like stones. What does she need? Marianne asked immediately. First, completely eliminate the sources of stress. Second, daily medication to control her blood pressure. Third, psychological therapy. Because the damage is not just physical, it's also emotional. And fourth, a real support network. Family that takes care of her, not destroys her. George and Moran nodded. She'll have it all, George said. You have my word. The doctor looked directly at me. Mrs. Carroll, what is causing you the most stress right now? The question took me by surprise. I thought of Robert, of Danielle, of the utility room, of the sold furniture, of the humiliation. My eldest son, I said finally, and the situation with him. Then, by medical prescription, I recommend that you temporarily cut contact with that situation for at least 3 months. You need to heal, and you can't heal if you keep getting wounded. Those words were like a release. A doctor was giving me permission to step away, to take care of myself, to set boundaries without guilt. I'll do it, I said. Marianne squeezed my hand, and we will be with you every step of the way. I left the hospital 2 days later. This is Mr. Mendes. Mr. Mendes? Good morning. I have some news. Robert just made the first payment. $2,200. $1,200 for rent and $1,000 for the debt. I remained silent, processing. Really? Yes. And there's something else. Your daughter-in-law Danielle got a job in a department store, a perfume saleswoman. I couldn't help but smile a little. Danielle, who had never worked a day in her life, now selling perfume. Life has strange ways of teaching lessons. Thanks for letting me know, mister. Mendes, there's something else. Carol Robert called the office. He asked about you. He says that he needs to talk to you. I'm not ready for that, I said immediately. I understand. I just wanted you to know. I hung up and stared out the window. Outside, life went on. People walking, children playing, street vendors shouting their wares. And there I was, alive, breathing, healing. I had lost a lot, but I had also gained something priceless. I had won my dignity back. And no one ever again was going to take it from me. But Robert wasn't going to give up so easily. And what he did next forced me to make the most difficult decision of my life. 2 weeks after leaving the hospital, I was watering the plants on my small balcony when I heard knocking at the door. Loud, desperate, insistent. Mom, please. I know you're in there. It was Robert. I froze the watering can still in my hand. Mom, we have to talk. Please, it's important. I didn't want to open it. 5 minutes. The doctor forbade me from stressful situations. I know, Miss Lucy told me, Mom, I didn't know you were so sick. If you had known you were notified 7 hours before your siblings and you didn't come, those words hit him like a slap. I saw his eyes fill with tears. Danielle wouldn't let me go. She said it was a trick of yours to manipulate me, that you wanted to play the victim. I believed her. And by the time I realized my mistake, you had already left the hospital and I didn't know where you were. Marianne and George found me without a problem. Because they are better children than me, he said with a broken voice. Mom, please just let me in for 5 minutes. I need to tell you something important. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. Robert entered and looked around the small apartment. I saw shame on his face, pain, regret. It's nice, he said in a low voice. Small but cozy. It's what I can afford with the rent from your father's building. He sat on the sofa carefully as if he were afraid of breaking something. Mom, I came to tell you that you were right about everything. I looked at him suspiciously. Danielle is destroying me, he continued. Ever since we signed the contract and she had to get a job, she's become unbearable. She complains all the time, saying everything is my fault, that I promised her one life and gave her another. And you were right, weren't you? I said without emotion. You promised her a house that wasn't yours. I know he put his face in his hands. I know, and it was my mistake, a huge mistake. But, Mom, I'm trapped. I have a baby on the way. I can't get a divorce now. Is that what you came to tell me? To cry about your marital problems? No. I came to... He took a deep breath. I came to ask for your forgiveness on my knees if necessary for everything. For throwing your things out for the utility room, for the money. For grandmother's furniture, for slamming the door in your face, for not going to the hospital, for being the worst son in the world. Tears streamed down his cheeks, and I felt nothing. That was the most terrifying part, that my own son was crying in front of me, and I felt no urge to comfort him. Robert, I said slowly, does Danielle know you're here? He shook his head. I slipped out while she was at work. If she finds out, she'll go crazy. Why, because she's still angry with you. She says you ruined our lives, that you took everything from us. I let out a bitter laugh. I didn't take anything from you. I set boundaries. There's a difference. I know, Mom, but she doesn't see it that way. And how do you see it? Robert looked up at me. I see that I lost my mother for a woman who doesn't even respect me, who yells at me, who blames me for everything, who threatens to take my son away from me if I don't do what she says. Then divorce her, I said simply. I can't. We're expecting a baby. Robert, I was 7 months pregnant with George when your father died. I had to go on alone. If you can work, you can support your child, with or without Danielle. But no buts. Either you stay with her and accept the consequences, or you separate and build a new life. But you can't go on like this, destroying yourself. And you can't come here expecting me to solve your life for you. Robert was silent for a long time. You don't love me anymore, Mom? He asked in a small child's voice. That question broke my heart. I will always love you, Robert. You are my son. I carried you in my womb. I raised you. I taught you to walk, to talk, to read. But I don't trust you anymore. And I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to again. What do I have to do? He pleaded. Tell me what I have to do to earn your trust back. Grow up, I said simply. Stop being a child who expects his mom to solve everything. Make decisions like an adult. Stand up for what's right, even if it's hard. And if I do, if I change, will you forgive me? I don't know, Robert. Honestly, I don't know. He slowly got up from the sofa. He looked older than he was, tired, defeated. Then all I can do is show you with actions, he said. No more words. He walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned one last time. When the baby is born, would you come to meet him? The question caught me off guard. If you truly invite me, if you treat me with respect, if Danielle accepts my presence without drama, then yes, I'll go. Thank you, Mom. And he left. I stood in the middle of the apartment trembling. Marianne was right. Seeing him had been stressful, but also necessary because Robert needed to hear the truth and I needed to tell it to him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation in my head. Robert's words, his devastated face. Had I been too harsh, too cold? Or was I just protecting my heart from more pain? At 2 o'clock in the morning, my cell phone rang. It was Marianne. Mom, are you awake? Yes, dear. What's wrong? I just got a very strange call from a woman who says she is Danielle's mother. My blood ran cold. Miss Beatrice, what did she want? She wants to meet with you. She says it's urgent that she has information you need to know about Danielle and Robert. Information? What kind of information she wouldn't tell me over the phone? Only that it's serious and that it could change everything. My mind started spinning. Why would Danielle's mother want to talk to me after how she treated me at that horrible dinner? What do you think? I asked Marianne. I think you should hear her out, but not alone. I'm coming with you. Can you come from Denver? I'm already on my way. I left 2 hours ago. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. My daughter always protecting me. Thank you, Marianne. That's what we're here for, Mom. No one is going to hurt you again. Not while I'm breathing. The next day, Marianne and I met with Ms. Beatrice at a coffee shop downtown. She arrived on time, but she looked different from the arrogant, elegant woman I had known. Her hair was unkempt, deep dark circles under her eyes. Her hands trembled as she held her purse. Thank you for coming, she said with a broken voice. What do you want, Miss Beatrice? Marianne asked in a professional and cold tone. Miss Beatrice took an envelope out of her bag. She placed it on the table. I need you to know the truth about my daughter, about what she really is. I opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were documents, many documents, bank statements, photographs, printed messages, and what I saw there left me breathless. Because Danielle wasn't just a manipulative and capricious woman, she was something much, much worse. And what I was about to discover was going to change everything. Absolutely everything. What Ms. Beatrice revealed to me that afternoon was so shocking I couldn't believe it. And when Robert found out, his world was going to completely collapse. My hands trembled as I reviewed the documents, credit card statements I had never seen before. All in Danielle's name. All with enormous debts. $23,000. I read aloud, feeling my mouth go dry. In credit card debt. How is that possible? Miss Beatrix's eyes were red. She looked years older than the last time I had seen her. My daughter is addicted to shopping, a compulsive shopper. She's been like this since she was 20. Her father and I have paid off her debts 5 times. 5, and she always falls back into it. Marianne took the documents and reviewed them with a lawyer's eye. These cards were taken out 3 years ago, long before she married Robert. Exactly. Miss Beatrice nodded. Danielle met Robert on a dating app. When she found out he had a house, well, she saw the perfect opportunity. Wait, I interrupted her, feeling nauseous. Are you telling me my daughter-in-law married my son for personal gain? Not only that, my daughter lied to him about the pregnancy. The world stood still. What I whispered. Ms. Beatrice took more papers out of the envelope, medical records, prescriptions, printed text messages. Danielle can't have children. She's had a uterine problem since she was 18. We've known since then. The doctors were clear. Natural pregnancy is impossible. Marianne and I looked at each other in horror. But she is pregnant. We saw her at the dinner. The doctor mentioned it. He said she couldn't get stressed. She's lying, Miss Beatrice said with a broken voice. There is no pregnancy. There never was. Check these messages. She handed me her phone. They were WhatsApp conversations between her and Danielle. Danielle, I already told Robert I'm pregnant. He was so happy. Ms. Beatrice. Danielle, you can't do this. When he finds out you lied, Danielle, he's not going to find out. I'll say I lost it in a few months, but by then I'll be well settled in the house. Miss Beatrice, this is wrong. Very wrong. Danielle, you never support me. Always criticizing. That's why I'm in this situation. I need this house. Mom, I need to get out of debt, or they're going to sue me. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Robert doesn't know any of this. Nothing. Danielle is very good at lying. Always has been. She bought maternity clothes. She looks up pregnancy symptoms online to fake nausea. She even bought positive pregnancy tests online to show him pictures. Why are you telling me this? I asked. You are her mother. Why betray your own daughter? Ms. Beatrice put her face in her hands and began to cry. Because I can't take it anymore. I can't keep watching her destroy lives. She has scammed 3 men before Robert. Always the same story. They fall in love. She invents pregnancies, gets money, and when she can no longer sustain the lie, she disappears. My God, I whispered. But this time, it was different. This time, she found someone who had a house and she decided to stay. And when you appeared as an obstacle, Elle saw her do horrible things, throw away your belongings, sell your furniture, humiliate you. And you said nothing, Marianne asked in a hard voice. I was afraid, Miss Beatrice cried. My daughter can be dangerous. She manipulates, lies, threatens. She told me that if I said anything to Robert, she would cut me out of her life forever. And she's my only daughter, my only baby. But she's not a baby anymore, I said in a firm voice. She's an adult woman who is committing fraud, and you are an accomplice by staying silent. Miss Beatrice nodded through her tears. I know. That's why I'm here, because yesterday Danielle came to ask me for more money. $5,000. She says she needs to get fake pregnancy tests done to keep deceiving Robert. And I can't go on with this anymore. I can't. Marianne took all the documents and put them away carefully. I'm going to need certified copies of all of this, and I need you to be willing to testify if necessary. Whatever it takes, Miss Beatrice said. I just want this to end before my daughter ruins more lives. Where's your husband in all this, I asked. Armstrong doesn't know anything. He thinks Danielle has finally settled down. If he finds out about this, I don't know what he would do. He's so proud of her. Well, he's going to have to find out, Marianne said, because this is serious. Very serious. I stared at the documents on the table. My son, my poor Robert, deceived, manipulated, destroyed by a woman who never loved him, who only saw an opportunity in him. I have to tell him I said. Robert has to know the truth. Are you sure, Mom? Marianne asked. This is going to destroy him. He's already destroyed, but at least if he knows the truth, he can start to rebuild on a real foundation, not on lies. Ms. Beatrice took my hands. Thank you. Thank you for being more of a mother than I am, for protecting your son even when he didn't protect you. Her words hurt me because they were right. I was still a mother despite everything. That same afternoon, I dialed Robert's number. He answered on the second ring. Mom, Robert, I need you to come to my apartment now. It's urgent. Are you okay? Did something happen? I'm fine, but we need to talk. Bring Danielle with you. Danielle? But Mom, Robert, I said in a firm voice. Either you both come in an hour or I'm coming over there. And believe me, you don't want this conversation to be at your house. Okay? Okay, we'll be there. I hung up and looked at Marianne. Are you ready? She asked. No, but we have to do it. 40 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. I opened it. Robert was there, nervous, pulling at his shirt collar. Beside him, Danielle with a sour face and tight maternity clothes. I hope this is important, Mom, Danielle said in a bored tone. I had to ask for time off from work. Come in, I said simply. They entered, sat on the sofa. Marianne stood next to me, a folder in her hands. What's going on? Robert asked. Why is Marianne here? Because what I'm about to tell you is very serious, and you need family support. I saw Danielle's face change from boredom to alert. Serious? She asked in a high-pitched voice. What are you talking about? I'm talking about lies, I said, looking directly at her. About fraud. About manipulation. I don't know what. Your mother came to see me. I interrupted and she told me everything. I saw the color drain from Danielle's face. My mom. What did she say? Marianne opened the folder and started taking out documents. She said, You're not pregnant, that you never were, that you have a medical condition that prevents you from having children, and that you lied to Robert to keep the house? The silence was deafening. Robert slowly got up from the sofa. What? His voice came out as a whisper. What did you say? She's lying, Danielle shouted. My mom is crazy. She's making things up because she's jealous that I'm happy. Here are the medical documents Marianne said showing them. Certified with your full name. Diagnosis bicornate uterus with severe adhesions. Impossibility of natural pregnancy. Those are old from years ago. I'm better now. The date is from 6 months ago, Marianne said coldly. When you were already married to Robert, and here is the conversation with your mother where you admit you're lying about the pregnancy. She showed him the phone with the messages. Robert took it with trembling hands. He read once, twice, 3 times, and then he collapsed onto the sofa with his head in his hands. "No, it can't be," he whispered. "Robert, my love." "Listen to me." Danielle knelt in front of him. "I am pregnant. I swear, those documents are fake. Your mom forged them to separate us." "Then why would your own mother give me this information?" I asked. "Because she hates me. Because she has always hated me," Danielle Roberts said in a dead voice, looking up. "Show me recent pregnancy tests from a real doctor with your name on them." Danielle opened her mouth, closed. It opened it again. I have them at home." "Liar," Marianne said. "Your mother also told us you bought positive pregnancy tests online, that the whole thing has been a setup from the beginning." "No, I am pregnant. I am." "Then we're going to the hospital right now," Robert said, standing up. "Now, and you're going to have an ultrasound in front of me." Danielle froze. It's late. The hospital's emergency rooms are open 24 hours a day." Marianne said, "Let's go now." "No, I'm not going. I don't have to prove anything to you." And there it was. The wordless confession. Robert looked at her with eyes full of tears. "Tell me the truth," he said with a broken voice. "Please just tell me the truth." Danielle was silent for a long time, and then slowly she began to cry. "I'm not pregnant," she whispered. "I never was." The cry of pain that came from Robert tore my soul apart. He put his hands to his head, pulling his hair, pacing in circles like a caged animal. "Why?" he shouted. "Why did you do this to me? Because I needed the house." "Because I have debts, because I was desperate, and what about me? Didn't I matter my feelings, my life? It was gonna work. I was gonna tell you I lost it in a few months and that's it. Nobody had to get hurt. You destroyed me." Robert was crying his eyes out. "I left my mother. I let you humiliate her. I spent all my money and all for a lie." Danielle tried to get closer to him, but Robert recoiled as if she were poison. "Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. Robert, please get out." He roared. "Get out of here. I never want to see you again." Danielle looked at me with pure hatred. "This is your fault," she hissed. "You ruined everything. We could have been happy." "Happiness built on lies is not happiness," I said calmly. "It's just an illusion waiting to collapse." Danielle grabbed her bag and stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door. Robert collapsed on the floor, crying like a small child. I approached slowly. I sat on the floor beside him, and for the first time in months I hugged him. "My son, my poor broken son. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. You were right about everything, and I was an idiot who hurt you for someone who was worthless." "Shh." I rocked him gently. "It's over now. It's over. Will you ever be able to forgive me?" "I already have, son," I said, feeling my own tears fall from the moment you decided to come looking for the truth. We stayed like that on the floor of my small apartment, crying together. Because sometimes to rebuild you first have to completely fall apart. And my son had just hit rock bottom. But I was going to be there to help him get up, because that's what mothers do. They forgive, they heal, they rebuild. Even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. The truth had come to light. But there was still one last decision to be made, one that would change our lives forever. The following days were a whirlwind. Robert immediately filed for divorce. With the evidence, we had the fake pregnancy fraud, the hidden debts, the messages confessing the manipulation. The lawyer said it would be quick and decisive. Danielle tried to fight. She demanded financial compensation. She threatened to sue for emotional distress. She even made up that Robert had abused her. But every lie crumbled in the face of the evidence. Ms. Beatrice, true to her word, testified against her own daughter. It was heartbreaking to see her in court crying as she told the truth. Mr. Armstrong, upon learning everything, had a nervous breakdown. He spent 3 days in the hospital. When he got out, he forbade Danielle from ever returning to his house. Danielle was left alone. No house, no husband, no family. And although part of me felt pity, another part, the part that had been humiliated and destroyed, knew that this was justice, not revenge. Justice, the natural consequences of her actions. 2 months after the divorce, Robert and I were sitting in my apartment having coffee. He had moved into a small studio near his work. He was even thinner, but his eyes had a clarity I hadn't seen in years. "Mom," he said, stirring sugar into his coffee, "I've been thinking a lot about everything about how we got to this point, and I asked and I realized something. I didn't marry Danielle for love. I married her out of fear." "Fear of what?" "Of being alone, of not being enough. When Dad died, I was just 15, and I watched you work yourself to the bone to raise us. I always wanted to show you that it was worth it, that your sacrifice was worth it." His voice broke. "So when Danielle came along, beautiful, self-assured, interested in me, I thought it was my chance to have the perfect family to show you that I had made it. But I did everything wrong, Robert," he continued. "Instead of protecting you, I hurt you. Instead of honoring your sacrifice, I trampled on it. I betrayed everything you taught me to impress someone who never loved me." Tears rolled down his cheeks. "How can you forgive me? How can you even look at me after what I did to you?" I got up from my chair and sat next to him. I took his face in my hands like when he was a child and had nightmares. Robert listened to me carefully. "Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone. What's important isn't the mistake, but what you do after you make it. But you acknowledged your mistake. You asked for forgiveness. You ended a toxic relationship. You're rebuilding your life. That takes more courage than never making a mistake. Do you really forgive me? I already told you. I forgave you the moment you had the courage to seek the truth." We hugged tightly, and I felt something that had been broken between us begin to heal. It wasn't completely cured. There were still scars. It still hurt, but it was healing, and that was enough for now. 3 months later, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello, Mrs. Carroll. This is Mr. Mendes." "Mr. Mendes, what happened? I have news. Danielle was arrested this morning." My stomach dropped. "Arrested? Why fraud?" "It turns out that after the divorce with Robert, she tried the same trick on another man, a businessman from Queens. She told him she was pregnant, took money from his accounts, sold some of his belongings." My God. But this man was smarter. He hired a private investigator. He discovered her entire history. The previous scams, the fake pregnancies, everything. And he pressed criminal charges. And now she faces charges for aggravated fraud. It could be up to 8 years in prison. Plus, the other previous victims are joining a class action lawsuit. Her mother is testifying too. I was silent, processing the information. "How is Robert?" I asked. "Does he know I told him an hour ago?" He said he hopes she learns that she finds help, but that it's not his problem anymore. "Good," I said. "That's mature of him." "There's something else, Carol. Robert has made all his payments the $2,200 a month for 4 straight months without fail, without complaint. I know. I've been monitoring the account. He wants to know if you would consider renegotiating the contract, not to pay less, but so he can visit you more often. He says he misses talking to you." I felt a lump in my throat. "Tell him to come for dinner on Sunday. I'm going to make pot roast his favorite." I heard the smile in the lawyer's voice. "I'll tell him. And Carol, I'm glad to see things are getting better. Thank you, Mr. Mendes, for everything." On Sunday, Robert arrived with flowers and a chocolate cake. "You didn't have to bring anything," I said as I opened the door. "I wanted to. It's the least I could do." We ate together. We talked about his work, his new apartment, his future plans. We talked about Marianne and George, about the nieces and nephews who lived far away. We talked about everything and nothing like we used to before Danielle came along, and it was normal, comfortable healing. When we finished dinner, Robert took an envelope out of his backpack. "What's that?" I asked. "Open it." I opened it carefully. Inside were legal documents. They were the deeds to the house completely transferred to my name with no conditions, no tenancy at will, nothing. "Robert, what is this?" "It's yours, Mom." "It always was, but now it's official. 100% yours." "I renounce any right to it." "But the house was for you. It was a gift that you were ashamed to keep, but you need a secure asset, a place of your own, and that house is yours. I'm going to build my own path as I should have from the beginning." Tears were streaming down my cheeks. "And where will you live?" "I'll stay in my apartment. I'm saving to buy my own place in a few years. Something I earn, not something given to me. Let me do this, Mom. Let me show you that I've learned that I've grown, that your sacrifice was not in vain. I hugged him tightly. My son, my little boy who was no longer a boy who was finally becoming the man I always knew he could be. 6 months later, I was in that same house on Jacaranda Street, but now it was different. I had cleaned every corner. I had painted the walls new colors. I had put plants in every window. Marianne had helped me renovate the kitchen. George had helped me fix up the garden. And Robert came every Sunday to eat with me. Sometimes he brought his siblings. Sometimes he came alone. But he always came on time, respectful, loving. One afternoon, the 4 of us were in the garden. Me, Robert, Marianne, and George drinking lemonade under the shade of the bougainvillea I had planted myself years ago. Do you know what day it is today? I asked. What day, Marani asked. Exactly 1 year ago today, I came back from my sister Gracie's funeral and found my things on the lawn. An uncomfortable silence fell. Mom, Robert began. No, I interrupted him with a smile. I'm not saying it to make you feel bad. I'm saying it because a year ago I thought I had lost everything. My house, my dignity, my family, my son. I looked at the 3 of them. But what really happened is that I lost the illusions, the lies, the fake relationships. And when all that was gone, I discovered what really mattered. What Jorge asked. You the ones who stayed, the ones who fought for me, the ones who showed me that family isn't perfect. But it can be real. Robert discreetly wiped his eyes. I also discovered something about myself. I continued. I discovered that I can be strong, that I can set boundaries, that I can demand respect without feeling guilty, that I don't have to accept crumbs of love. You taught us all a lesson, Mom, Marianne said. Sometimes the greatest love is the one that says no more. Exactly. And today, 1 year later, I am sitting in my garden in my house with my children who truly love me. Drinking lemonade at peace. At peace, the 3 of them repeated. We toasted with our glasses of lemonade and we laughed. And for the first time in a long time, I felt that everything was where it should be. That night when my children had left and I was alone, I went out to the garden one last time. I looked at the stars, the same sky I had looked at a year ago when I thought my life was over. But it wasn't over. It had begun again. I had fallen. I had been broken. I had hit rock bottom. But I had gotten up, and I had learned the most important lesson of all, that dignity is not given away. It is defended. That respect is not begged for. It is demanded. That true love does not humiliate. It uplifts. And that it is never ever too late to clean your life of everything that doesn't serve you. Even when it means being alone for a while, because being alone with your dignity intact is better than being accompanied in humiliation. I smiled looking at the stars. Thank you, Gracie. I whispered, thinking of my sister. Thank you for teaching me that life is short and that it shouldn't be wasted on people who don't value us. The wind blew gently rustling the bougainvillea, and I swear I felt my sister's answer in that wind. You're welcome, little sister. Now live, truly live, and that's exactly what I did. I lived with dignity, with peace, with self-love, and with the certainty that I had won the most important battle of all, the battle for my own soul. If this story touched your heart, it's because something in it resonated with you. Maybe you too have been humiliated by someone who should love you. Maybe you too have felt that you are worthless, that you are in the way, that you should accept the crumbs. Let me tell you something from the bottom of my soul. You are worthy. You have always been worthy, and you deserve respect. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter if you're a mother, grandmother, daughter, or sister. It doesn't matter how many times you've been made to feel small. You have a right to your dignity, to your space, to your peace, to your happiness. And if anyone makes you feel less than you are, then it's time to do a clean out, to say enough is enough, to set boundaries, to demand respect, to defend yourself, because life is too short to live it on your knees. And it is never, ever too late to stand up. I did it at 67 years old. You can too. If this story touched your heart, leave me a comment telling me where you're watching from. The United States, Colombia, Mexico, Spain. I would love to know that these words reached you. Give it a like if you believe that dignity is priceless, and subscribe for more stories of brave women who decided not to give up. Because we all have a warrior inside waiting to awaken.